Welcome back to Shockwaves, the after show where we dig deep into Stellar Shock, chapter by chapter. I am Jess, your host, and with me, like always, is Arthur, or Art, if you know him, the voice behind Tuitoma's bruises. Art, you ready?
As I'll ever be. Always a strange hearing you sum up this kind of episode as digging deep. All we do is wallow in that mud, same as...
That's what people want, right? Mud, bruises, actual pain, none of the sugar. So this week we hit chapter 3, part 1, focusing on Ser Sarrafin, the festival, and everything that comes after. A lot of, let's be honest, suffering, but also some small celebration. Where exactly does this chapter sit with you as the author?
This one's right at the midpoint of the start. You've got that sense of the village in full color, banners hung, everyone dancing, kids running wild. It's the best Tuitoma ever gets, which means it's just waiting for things to go wrong. You can't write a festival and keep it warm all the way through. That's not how this world works.
The whole festival scene, it felt like the community was hungry for a reason not to think about the actual slow grind of their lives. You drop in those details, torn flags, broken benches, lights hanging by threads. But underneath, it's already rotted. You leaning in on that on purpose, or that just how role fantasy works for you?
I think when people celebrate in places like this, in worlds like this, they do it with the awareness that next day is going to be worse for it. I've lived in enough small towns to know. You take a festival and it's always relief first. Then somebody breaks a window, someone gets hit, the hangover comes back twice as hard. I wanted it ugly in the details. Heavy air, heat, flies, sweat. No beauty unless you squint or you're already tipsy.
And the minstrels, I gotta say, the festival and that show Canción puts on, it gave me goosebumps. Not in a dreamy way, but like they're the spark. They rile up those kids. And by the time it's over, everyone looks even more tired, stretched thin.
The minstrels are outsiders. You bring outsiders into a place like Tuitoma. You get suspicion, you get hope, you get promises. The kids get to see a world beyond the mud fields. And then the show ends, those people move on. Tuitoma's got less than it started with. Maybe a story, maybe a song in the old woman's head. But the rest, it's gone.
It's like you let the minstrels bridge this fantasy, this idea there's something more, without ever giving it to them. Really. Even Ser, when he's pushed up to sing, there's so much fear in that moment. Can you talk about writing that scene? Was it always going to be him, or did you toy with letting Vera or someone else have the last song?
It was always Ser. That fear's baked in. He doesn't want it. It's that push and pull. You got a village full of pressure, an uncle who's never satisfied, and a crowd that wants a scapegoat and a champion. Ser's both, depending on the night. The song isn't a reward, it's a last job of the night. Everyone's waiting for someone to break. That time, it's him.
I love how that scene lands. I mean, even the singing isn't cathartic. No hero's arc, just pain through gritted teeth. The way you describe his voice, the panic, the sweat. Was it hard to resist making it wholesome, or do you just not have that in you?
I don't have much soft in me for these characters. You let them off easy once and the rest of the story gets flat. If Ser sang and came away glowing, he wouldn't be Ser. Real pain is what sticks. I can't glamorize that. I have to write just the bone and skin. Sometimes bruised, sometimes cut, but always staying raw.
So we got to talk about what happens afterward. You really let the festival's noise fade into nothing except that encounter with Ward. That scene where Ser gets hit, it hurt to listen to. How do you know when you've done enough to make that the violence, the after, it feel real rather than just edgelord material?
If it feels uncomfortable, it's because it is. I grew up around men who drank too much and used their fists too quick. I know the sounds. You get the slurred blame, the old anger, those quick hands. When I write it, I want the audience to feel trapped, same as Ser. If it reads as spectacle, it misses the point. If you feel like stepping away, then I've hit it right. Real pain's got weight. It doesn't just flash and disappear.
One thing that got me, after the fight, you drag time out. Ser sits, works his jaw, feeds bread to himself, lets a moth die in his hand. It's such dead weight, like he's more tired than angry. That's different from how a lot of fantasy would play it out, especially with a young hero. Why do you like to lean into that exhaustion instead of the fire?
Because most people don't do anything after a beating. They survive it, maybe. They're just tired, ashamed, hungry, and in too much pain to throw punches back. That fire, maybe it comes at some point, but it's built on slow, everyday endurance. You don't get up ready for the next round. You just patch the cut, chew stale bread, watch the bugs, and hope the next hit lands softer.
That's kind of brutal, but it fits. Now, about Vera. I love how she's close, but not in that romantic, fixie everything way. She's got her own scars in the background, but edged in rough. How'd you figure out their friendship balance?
Everyone in Tuitoma is carrying something. Ser and Vera, a lot of old pain in both houses. They know what to expect from each other. There's comfort, but no rescue. Vera's not the savior. She can bring a meal, bandage a cut, throw a joke, but she won't change the weather. Their bond is trust, built on shared grind, not soft words.
The details: mud, sweat, old fences, bruised jaw. There's no break for Ser. Every time he stands, someone's there to drag him back down or offer crust. You ever worry readers or listeners will say, enough? Like, where's their hope?
Some might. But for me, hope in these stories isn't a rescue, it's stubbornness. You see it when Ser stands in the field, breaks clods, shares bread, keeps working. Living through another day, that's hope. Small gestures. Vera bringing soup, rolling rope over his shoulder. That's the real win in places like Tuitoma. If you want heroes with swords and shining armor, this isn't your story.
Do you get feedback from people who want those sword and shield moments, who say, when's Ser gonna get strong and fight back?
Sometimes. I get letters, half say I was waiting for him to run or lash out or turn the tables. The other half, usually people who've seen the inside of a bad house, say, yeah, that's it. That's how quiet survival feels. The struggle makes the story for me, not the escape.
Let's dip into some listener questions. First one's from Haley. Is Ward meant to be purely a villain? He's hard to listen to, but some parts sound almost, there's a shadow of sadness. So is there any chance for him, or is he just the brick wall?
Ward's not a villain, not in the story sense. He's just what happens when someone loses all the fights and blames everyone else. He drinks, lashes out, regrets it, then cycles back. Sometimes he shows regret because regret is easy when nothing's on the line. The sadness is real. He's lost most of what kept him human. He's dangerous, but he's not a cartoon. I don't write him to be redeemed or to be hated, just to be understood.
That sounds like you've drawn on people you knew.
Too many.
Right. So let's talk about how community works in this story. The lines between mine and yours, fences loose, kids running wild, people barging into kitchens, nobody's ever alone. How do you see that shaping, Ser?
Tyr's got no privacy because nobody in the village does. You're shaped by chores and neighbors before you get a chance to build your own shell. For him, survival comes from being half in and half out of everyone's business. He gets respite from friends, but he's never safe from the others. His uncle, the old men at council. It's all a grind of faces, needs, hands grabbing, mouths blaming. You can't hero your way out. You just have to absorb and stay moving.
And speaking of council, that scene where all the old men just sit around, argue over fences, pie, and minstrels, they're not making decisions, just keeping the pot stirred. Is that your path sneaking in again?
It's every small town I've lived in, present company sometimes included. You put a group of tired men and women in a room. They'll spend 3 hours arguing about who broke the bucket and never fixed the leak. Real power moves behind closed doors, or not at all. Counsels the ritual. It gives the community something to do besides blame themselves.
And after all that, you bring Sarah to the well, let him share a meal in another home, laugh, get beat up in games with the other kids. Is that your reward system or just how things reset to zero?
There's no reward system here. You get food, you laugh at the little things, you take what comfort you can, because otherwise the next day chews you up worse. The only scorecard is the one you write in mud, and it washes away every time it rains.
Let's go into voice for a sec. You write in a style that's real blunt, bare bones, but so precise you can almost taste the dirt. I notice you avoid adjectives and just grind everything into action, objects, smells. Why do you do that? Habit?
Partially habit, partly belief. I think if you use too many bells and whistles, you lose the reality. I'd rather write sweat running down his back, the sharp sting of a slap, or bread tastes like dust than dress it up. Keeps everything close to the bone. Besides, nobody in Tuitoma's got the patience for pretty words.
I notice you never let Ser cry or collapse, not fully. There's a whimper once, maybe, but mostly he resets, goes about chores, eyes on the ground. Is that intentional or just who he is when you write him?
That's who he is. You cry, but not for long. There's no drama. Things ache. You mumble, push bread in your mouth. You fix the fence or patch your boot, then go back to living. In these places, open pain is weakness. You keep it shielded to save yourself and everyone you care about.
The world isn't totally closed, though. You have the minstrels dropping in, riddles for the kids, rumors of wars beyond the jungle. Is that your way of keeping hope faint but present?
Hope here is just a different story. The outside world can come in. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it ruins things. Sometimes it just passes through. These people don't live expecting rescue. If hope exists, it's as simple as rain breaking after a hard morning or a joke in the mud. The minstrels offer a window, but it's narrow and it swings shut fast.
How do you keep from making those small moments sentimental?
By making them cost something. If Vera sneaks a crust to Ser, it costs her. If Ser lays in the field a few seconds longer, someone else will say he's slacking. No moment is free, so every bit of comfort is a trade or a risk.
We had a question from Donnie. Is Vera ever going to save Ser outright, or does he have to earn every inch himself? What do you say?
Nobody's saving anybody in this place. They help, sure, push each other forward, but there's no rescue. Survival is group work, slow, repetitive, cheap, and hard. Vera will carry him a step, same as he'll carry her, but there's no ride out on white horses.
I'm into that. Switching gears, a lot of people picked up on the animal details. The oxen, pigs, the dog chasing scraps, crows waiting for seeds. You think about that much?
Constantly. Animals remind readers what's really at risk. If the pigs miss a meal, people will soon. If the ox slumps under the yoke, someone's walking to market. Every animal shapes how work gets done, how hunger settles in, how luck changes. If war comes one day, the animals will know it first.
You never give us the weather. Simple setting always is a force that does damage. Mud in boots, rain flattening everything, sun burning the last hope out of the clouds. Why make it another antagonist?
Because out here it is. Weather's a character. It breaks plans, rots harvests, ruins fences. It's not a painting outside your window. It's what makes your day harder or easier. People don't think about it unless it hurts. So that's how I write it.
If you had to spend one day in Tuitoma, which character would you hang with?
Vero, she'd never let things slide. She'd get you fed, keep the jokes coming, deck anyone who stepped up wrong. Or Balu, kid tries, can't dance, but he'd scam you out of your last piece of cake with a smile.
I'd take Viti, chaos and all.
You'd end up covered in mud, maybe chased by goats, but you wouldn't be bored.
You think this world works because nobody gets what they want or because nobody stops trying?
Both. Sometimes not getting what you want keeps you fighting. If everything went well, Tuitoma would flatten. What runs the engine isn't hope, but stubborn work.
What's next for Ser in the coming chapters? Any spoilers? Not big, just a hint.
Life in Tuitoma's not letting up. Council gets rougher. The rains keep coming. Old wounds flare up. New trouble on the edge, maybe from outside, maybe just churning under the surface. Ser and Vera, they'll carry on. Maybe they'll get kicked harder. Maybe they'll have one more night with music and bread.
Art, as always, you leave the world heavier than you found it. Any closing thoughts for listeners who are in the trenches in their own worlds?
If the work gets you up tomorrow, you're already stronger than you know. Bread and bruises, sometimes both on the same day. That's still surviving.
Couldn't have said it better. That's it for this round of Shockwaves. You got mud, music, bruises, and scraps of hope. Stellar Shock, Chapter 3, Part 1. Right after the break, we'll drag Art back for Chapter 3, Part 2. Until then, keep your feet dry if you can.
Good luck with that.
Welcome back to Shockwaves. This is the podcast where we break down every muddy beat of stellar shock. I'm Jess, your host, coming in fresh from a week of bailing water out of my own kitchen. And with me, as always, is Arthur. He's the mind behind everything that just happened in Chapter 3, Part 2. Hi, Art.
Hey, Jess, thanks for having me on again. It's only fitting, given the week, that we're talking about a chapter that's got more mud and rain than my own backyard.
You've got a knack for timing. Let's just jump in. Part 2 feels like the aftermath of the festival. The big, loud moments are done. Now everybody's stuck with their hangover. How'd you decide that this was the direction for the next day in Tuitoma? There's barely a beat that isn't about weather, chores, and everyone's sort of slogging through it.
I wanted readers to feel what it's like when festival magic fades. There's always a next day. Maybe you wake up hungover, maybe you wake up bruised. For Sarah and everyone in Tuitoma, daily life comes back heavy. No one's waiting around for closure. They only know work. They only know what hurts. That's what comes after a small glimmer of relief, the return to normal, which always feels harder.
That opening, Ser waking up, jaw aching, the mud already dragging at his boots, cold ash and piss in the house. You hit us with a mood right away.
It's all about making you feel the world on your skin. And for Ser, waking up means checking what's still broken. His Uncle Ward's gone. There's nothing but the usual fieldwork ahead. That's the regular beat. Pain, work, more pain, and no room to look for comfort.
You avoid either sentimentality or melodrama, even around those little moments. Vera hands Ser a crust of dark bread. Neither of them's going to be poetic about it, but it's a little lifeline. What tells you when to cut off the emotion and when to let it show in a scene?
Real people don't talk about what matters half the time. That's the truth, especially in small towns with too much history. If Vera hands Ser bread, it's practical. She does it because it keeps them moving, not because she wants to make a gesture. If anyone gets too touchy-feely, it doesn't fit. That's not their life. So you show the action, bread passed, a nod, no words, but you see what's there. If you linger on the emotion or say it out loud, the moment dies.
I love that Vera's dialogue is just you going to live. That's it. It forces the reader to do the work.
They're all too tired for more words. If Ser answered in flowery language, Vera would roll her eyes and move on.
So let's walk through the chapter. The first half is all about returning to regular chores. Ser and Vera and the boys trudging to the field, mud sucking down boots, sun coming out just long enough to make the sweat worse. There's not a lot of plot, but there's so much world. Why lean in to endless work?
That's life for most. You drag yourself up, grab a hoe, keep your head down. Nothing stops because you're bruised, humiliated, bored. Especially for people with nothing, these aren't side details. They're the only story. It's war of attrition, you versus the dirt, every day.
There are moments, though. Small drama, village gossip spreads like a fungus. The theft gets blamed on outsiders, or maybe not outsiders. You get women at the well spreading rumors, kids tearing through the muddy lanes, stealing fruit, eggs, whatever. How much of that's pulled from real memory and how much came from you just dreaming up Tuitoma?
Most of it's growing up in a small town. I remember how every time a shoe went missing, it was a crisis. The thief was always someone new, sometimes a kid, sometimes if you asked someone's grandma, a ghost. I wanted all these rumors to spread faster than any truth. It's just how people work, especially when things go wrong. When there's not enough, you start pointing fingers.
That comes through. Later, there's the fire, and it's not some huge plot-changing event, but it still changes the day. Everyone pulls together, panic first, then disappointment. No one catches a hero moment. No one's elevated by it. You watch whole crowds just get more tired, more suspicious, more wrung out.
The fire needed to feel like exposure. There's chaos, but no one rises above. Kegel's ruined, but it's not fixed with a speech or a miracle. The work falls back on the same people, and if there's any restoration, it's not clean. People help because they have to, not because they're saints. The cost gets divided whether anyone agrees or not.
You want us to hate Ward in this sequence. He comes late, tosses curses, doesn't help, and then sort of slinks away.
Ward isn't meant to be hated. He's tired and bitter, probably drunk, definitely broken. He doesn't know how to help, not really. He used to. Now, the best he can contribute is a complaint. Everyone in Tuitoma is angry at Ward sometimes, but no one's shocked when he shows up and hurts rather than heals. I wasn't going to give him a redemption where he grabs a bucket and makes everything better.
There's a real sense that Ser's stuck in this cycle: pain, mud, chores, dealing with Ward, getting maybe one cup of cold soup left. Was there ever a version where things let up on him? Or is the whole point to never let go of that tension?
If I let up, it gets cheap. Ser's story isn't about escape. It's about learning how to stay upright when you're never given an out. He has memories. He has some old songs from his parents, but they're just that, memories. The present is pain, repetition, and the small chance for comfort that comes from stubborn friends or rare moments when things don't get worse. That's what I want you to feel.
I want to talk about the way you handle time in this section. There are huge chunks where you lean into the looping nature of work. Chop, break, dump, repeat. Even your sentence rhythms shift to match. Was that stylistic, or is it just your default?
It's on purpose. The work itself becomes the internal rhythm. If Ser's hours are all hoe, haul, sharpen, eat, sleep, then the prose reflects that. Repetitions mark his life, and you can't write it with clever simile or cutaway reflection. It has to be direct. So I did my best to shave it all down to the muscle.
Then you'll throw in a physical beat. Ser's jaw throbs, his ribs catch with sweat. He can't sleep because Ward's snoring like a dying engine. Why those details instead of more traditional character study inner thoughts?
If you're spent, hungry, and sore, you don't get to dwell in philosophical flag. Your body tells you the truth. That's all Ser has left. Body memory. He can't think about regret or hope. He has to notice the ache every time he bends to tie his boots. It's honest, and it locks the reader in. If you feel Ser's bruises in every action, you're in his world, not floating above it.
There's the village, this piece of the world built up by tiny actions, kids chasing pigs, mothers ignoring children's hunger until the bread dough finishes rising, repairs done in silence or with spat curses. How much of that is you growing up rural, and how much is just trying to make things tactile?
I was raised rural, and I watched people do the same thing everywhere. Nothing gets fixed by itself. Everything breaks twice before it's right, and most problems get talked around rather than dealt with. When I write The Village, it's grounding the setting in bodies and chores. The world doesn't wait for you to have a narrative arc. You get up, the rain comes, you curse the rain, your knee acts up, the roof leaks, and the cats fight under the porch as your plot.
So I want to talk about Vera. She's hard as nails, a phrase she'd probably hate. There's this moment where she's helping Ser work, quietly puts herself shoulder to shoulder with him in the mess after the fire, and wraps her own rag around her bleeding hand because she doesn't want to stop. It feels deliberate that you never let her break down or open up in big TV drama ways.
Vera can't afford sentiment. She's lived under the same weight as Ser, if not harder, being the only girl with a half dozen brothers and a mother who doesn't hand out soft words. When she gets cut, she wraps it up and gets back at it. The support comes as small gestures. She'll steal bread from her own meal to give him, push him to keep moving, scold him with a joke when she's worried. Any bigger show, and she'd think she was wasting breath. That's more honest than spelling out her pain.
It makes the chapter small victories, patching a fence, saving a bucket's worth of soup, seeing the new roof hold through a shower, feel earned, not handed out.
That's what life looks like when you're down. A day that doesn't leave you worse is almost a win.
So let's hit some specifics. You've got an entire crowd scene for the fire, but you never focus on the main characters at the expense of the world. Instead, everyone's moving, arguing, complaining. We see each character from the outside first. Kegel pounding embers, Viti yelling about bellows, Tavlin barking orders. Why write it that way? Why not narrow in to Ser or Vera's eyes?
You need to feel Tuitoma as one tangled knot. If we only stay on Ser's suffering or Vierd's concern or Ward's spite, it shrinks everything. They're all suffering differently, all chipping in, all failing at once. If you want a story about just one person, you lose what makes a village real. Everyone else's noise, everyone's pain blending together. The narrative lens should bounce from face to face, moment to moment, not lock in so tight you forget the rest of the world is hurting too.
Do you ever get feedback that readers want just more plot?
Oh, sure. There's always someone who wants to know when does the magic show up or where are the secrets. But I tell them, secrets don't hide in fantasy forests or plots about crowns. The secrets are in the missing bread, the bent fence post, the rumor about who set the fire. Life's all small mysteries, unless you're already looking for something to believe in.
Speaking of mysteries, this chapter has the missing cloth, wild rumors about the minstrels maybe being to blame, and every kid with an alibi. Do you write a solution for those details? Or do some threads just drift away because no one in the village has time to chase the answer?
Both, but mostly the latter. What matters gets lost if you're busy surviving. In real small towns, stolen cloth or a broken window is only news until another disaster appears. Then everyone forgets, unless they're still mad. Not every thread needs to be tied. Some rumors eat themselves, some die, and only one or two will ever matter again. Life goes on.
Now, the tension with Ward and Ser, it's never explosive. It's just always there, like a splinter. Ward's presence, is a dark cloud across every meal. You have these small, violent acts, Ser flinching at a sound, bracing for another strike. How do you handle that kind of violence, day in and day out, without pushing the reader away or overplaying the agony?
You make it routine. If violence is an eruption every time, you desensitize the reader. The shoves, the words, the looks, most of it's routine. Ser anticipates pain before it lands, and when it doesn't, the tension stays anyway. It's not melodramatic, not a Hollywood punch. It's someone, in this case, Ward, spreading rot instead of healing. You need the regular pain to be part of the world, not the centerpiece.
And there's restraint in the way you write their silences. You avoid monologues always. Why so minimal on dialogue in those moments?
Because nothing helpful comes from it. Neither of them has language for what's really wrong. It'd be false for Ser to blurt out, "Why do you hate me?" or for Ward to explain himself. They don't talk. They eat in silence or mumble or spit a curse. That's their history. More than words would break the spell.
Let's talk about the village political scene. There's always a council, always an argument, always someone trying to blame the last disaster on a convenient outsider. Where's that from?
That's every community, even family if you squint. Blame and power run in circles. Someone wants a scapegoat, someone else wants to fix a gate, a third just wants left alone. I stole lines from every town meeting I've suffered through. No one wants to be blamed. Everyone wants something for free, and nobody wants to stay up all night on watch, but everyone wants someone else to.
I have to point out the kids. If the adults are tired, the kids are part cursed, part feral. They chase each other through mud, throw rocks, steal scraps, get in trouble, then run from it. You let them be wild.
Wildness is survival. For kids in places like Tuitoma, you steal when you're hungry, lie when you're caught, and run because it's fun. They build their toughness out of whatever's nearby. Curses, jokes, bruises. I wanted them to act up, get in fights, throw bread at windows, because that's life. Nobody protects innocence. You get sharp, quick.
Loved the bit where one of the brothers gets bloodied and immediately Roland spits on it, patches it with a shirt. Then off they go. No tragedy, just action to action.
That's how you learn to live with pain. Patch it and move on. There aren't resources to coddle. If you treat blood or bruises as disasters, nothing gets done.
Is that rougher than your own boyhood?
No, but there's no room for nostalgia in the book. My own past was softer, but I've seen what happens when kids don't get a break, and I didn't want to pretty it up.
We've talked a lot about suffering. There are also little glimmers of humor, workmanlike, dry as dust. Is that just habit or is it conscious?
It's both. Humor is wedge and release. These characters don't get punchlines or stand-up routines. Vidi says he's never let the truth stop him. That's a joke, but no one cracks a smile. It keeps you sane, but only barely.
A lot of listeners have asked about the town itself. Tuitoma feels alive. If you had to walk through, where would you go first? Who would you stop to talk to?
I'd find Kaggle at the forge. Any small town runs on its smith. Tools, rumors, temper it all. Then maybe Tavlin's porch, though she'd curse me out. Her eyes are the sharpest in the village. But I'd avoid the council. They can't fix their own windows, let alone the town.
It's been a little off topic. I notice some people picking up on your king-leaning style. You strip everything bare. No flourishes, not a lot of metaphor or fancy description. No pulling out to talk about the grand theme of suffering. Just mud, boots, bruises. Is that a tribute or is that just your voice coming through?
Bit of both. I read King young, learned to cut quick. But the main thing is If you stop for decoration, you lose the reader in the fog. There's no artifice in Tuitoma. The prose isn't about style, it's about function. You show everything through doing. There aren't longing gazes or tender musings. There are chores that need doing before the next rain.
You have the old battered objects, the bent knife, the father's spoon, the ruined belt, the rag-wrapped hands. Is possession a big piece of how you draw character?
Yeah. People hold on to what they can, not for nostalgia really, but because it's useful or all that's left. Objects are memory you can touch. Ser's parents, long gone, left him a knife and a spoon, and neither makes life easier, but both remind him where he came from. That tells you who he is without a speech or a flashback.
So by the end of this section, Ser's world hasn't changed. Not really. The fire's out, but the mud stays. The bruises fade, but someone else gets hurt. Work stacks up. Even moments of rest or humor slip away fast.
That's survival. Chapters don't give out closure, same as life. Maybe someone sings, maybe a fence gets patched, but tomorrow brings more rain. You keep going or you don't.
How do you want readers to walk away from this section? Not what's the big message, more what feeling should stick after everything.
I want them to feel the weight. There's dignity in surviving, not conquering. No one gets a parade, no one wins. But if you're still alive, that's its own answer. Dirt, rain, bruises. If the world hasn't beat you down for good, you're still in it.
Okay, lightning round. Favorite moment in this part of the chapter?
Begel hammering at the ash, not saying anything, just doing the work. That's the heart of the chapter. Loss, anger, and nothing fancy, just pick up the tools.
Least favorite scene to write?
The soup at Vera's. Harder than you'd think to get the feeling right. Not too cold, not too comforting.
Any cutscenes, something that was too harsh or too soft for Tuitoma?
I cut some early banter between Ser and Roland. It felt forced. In pain, you don't have time to joke about hope, not unless you mean it.
And the animals, the goat is always destroying things. There's pigs rooting under everything, chickens escaping, dogs fighting. Writing animals feels almost like writing chaos. Any secrets there?
The animals are part of the world. They don't get lines, but they get action. They exist to remind the people that not everything bends to their will. They break things, root in the wrong spot, keep you humble.
If you could drop any one modern thing into Tuitoma, say a chainsaw or a bag of fast food, would you do it? Or would it ruin everything?
They'd break the chainsaw in a week, eat the food in a minute, and the field would still need hoeing. Nothing helps for long.
Wrapping up, where is Ser going? He's got an old knife, a pack he won't open, bruises he won't explain. He's not leaving, not yet, but does it get any better?
For Ser, better just means not losing more. Maybe the next day he keeps his soup, or the fence holds, or Vera shares a laugh. That's better, even if it won't last.
I want to hit you with this. The way you close Purl doesn't follow that neat little arc a lot of listeners expect. No tidy wrap-up, no catharsis, even the little stuff. Ward muttering in another room, or Vera's window flicking shut. Lands like unfinished business. That intentional?
Always. A neat ending would be a lie. Tuitoma's days don't get tied off with a bow. You go to bed with bruises and you wake up stiff. Ward's not going to have a heart-to-heart. The window will close because someone needs sleep, not because there's closure.
But you layer hope in there, just a little. Ser holds the blue cloth patch Vera gives him, turns it in his hand, doesn't let go. Those aren't gestures for the sake of optimism, right?
It's just what people do. You grab any scrap of kindness or comfort, not because you expect miracles, but because it's one more thing that keeps you facing the next day. Hope is work. It's not a mood or a feeling. It's a habit. You take the rag, you carry the knife, you keep going. Nothing grand.
After the fire, everyone's hands are cut, the mud's always creeping in, soup's stretched thin. When you write those recovery scenes, the endless repairs, the slow work, how do you keep them from dragging for the reader?
I use plain action, show each job. Someone packing earth into the post hole until their nails split. Kids arguing over bent nails. Bread getting sliced rough. Don't dwell, just track the job being done, move to the next, make each moment specific. The drag comes when you summarize. I don't summarize it.
And you show how everyone recovers in their own way. The men keep hauling, the women eye the new roof and already find fault. Kids turn repairs into races or games. Does that match your real life experience?
Pretty much. You'd see someone stop mid-tag just to point at another crooked board, or kids who help by getting in the way. If you're lucky, the world keeps working through the mess.
About Ser's dreams, there's that bit where he wakes rough, feels like he couldn't move his legs, the field always too long. He's got this sense of the work never ending. But you leave even despair kind of matter of fact.
Because for Ser, there's no point naming it. You feel spent, you feel hobbled, you get up or you don't. He doesn't have time or language for despair in the poetic sense. He lives it. It's not news to him.
And picking up on the way memory works in the book. The song from his mother, the spoon, the battered buckle he digs up. None of it is nostalgia. It's more like wear and tear. You get the sense that old happiness just weighs the present down.
Memory's brick and mortar. You live with it. It shapes you. It doesn't lift you. Sometimes it hurts more than it helps, but it's all you've got. Those objects are the real inheritance, not any speech or secret.
Listeners ask about Ser and Vera. Are they ever going to have a talk, a real talk about escape or what they want? Or is that as much as we'll get shoulder to shoulder at the fence, patching holes, trading bread?
That's it, really. If they ever did talk, they'd mess it up. People like them do their hoping by way of chores. They look sideways, not straight on. The most honest things anyone says are short. She says, "Don't lead me alone to it." He says, "Probably you dragging half the village." That's the real core, showing up, even when you don't know what to ask for.
And the way you build pain in, the smaller stuff, scabs, split fingers, cold stew, someone's razor voice cutting through the morning. Those are the emotional moments as much as any confession.
They're more honest than any big outpouring. You nurse a bruise or chew on crust. That's what tells you about a body or a soul after everything else has said its piece. The daily cut is sharper than the big showy wound.
There's a lot of trust in the audience to pick up on those details, not over-explain, not tie everything up.
Trust the wrong word. Necessity is more like it. Life doesn't bother explaining itself to you. Why should the story? If I did, I'd be lying about how things work.
Let's talk about humor again. The running jokes are blunt, almost cutting, like when Balu blames someone else every time he falls in the ditch, or VT claims he found lucky stones. Are those signs that this world has warmth, or are they just defense mechanisms?
Both, probably. If you don't laugh, the work will wear you flat. But no one here survives by wishful thinking. That humor is war-hardened, sharpened, same as a good knife. Keeps people moving, keeps the group together. If a joke lands, it's usually at someone's expense, your own, someone else's. Doesn't matter.
Would you say you value that jokes as shields rather than weapons?
Shields, sure. But a good shield cracks if you hit it enough. The jokes crack too. Laughter never lasts long.
I want to run through some listener questions. Here's one. Art, why do you write the kids in Tuitoma so rough? Some people wanted at least one soft spot, one innocent.
They're rough because they have to be. You want innocence. You don't grow up starving in a patched house with nothing to do but chase animals and dodge work. Maybe somewhere else, but not here. A soft kid doesn't last.
Here's another. Is Ward redeemable or is he always going to be trouble?
Redemption's not a goal for Ward. Day to day, he might soften, he might break down, but no one gets a come to Jesus moment in this world. He's too tired for grace, too raw for forgiveness, at least not outright.
Last one for today. Would Ser ever leave, or is he bound to the village forever?
Ciri's choices shrink by the day. He stays as long as there's something to be done. Vera, a bruise to endure, a field to hoe. If he leaves, he won't do it because he found hope. He'll do it because there's nothing left to patch. For now, he chooses to stay, and that's enough.
On the subject of leaving, there's that scene where the merchant cart rolls through again, barely making a dent. Nothing changes. Village buys what it can, the elders grumble about prices, the kids angle for a treat, but nobody's fortunes change. Why keep bringing outsiders in if nothing shifts?
Outsiders remind you the world keeps moving. The merchant does nothing but move goods around. People still want what he sells, but it never fills the gap. It's one more churn in the mud. Nobody's world expands. They just get a new patch of cloth or a tin of beans and keep on. Sometimes I bring outsiders so the village can have a reason to pull tighter. Change comes from within, if it comes at all.
What's the hardest part of writing these endless cycles of breakdown, repair, repeat? I mean, how do you keep yourself from getting bored? Or do you lean into that feeling because you want the reader to sit in it too?
If I get bored, I make someone drop a bucket or lose a fight, but mostly I just keep it moving. Boredom's a tool to show what grind does. Nothing new, just thicker mud, more tired bones. It's work for me too.
So I caught a different question floating around the chat about the way you describe pain. You don't do his heart raced, you go for his hand found the knife or jaw clenched, that kind of thing.
If you want to show pain as something that has a job, a punch to the jaw changes how you chew, not how you cry. You bend differently on a bad ankle. If pain doesn't change what a person can do, it's just drama. I only care how pain works, not how it looks.
I wrote down a line for myself. You had something like, no one in Tuitoma made easy work of mornings. It's short, plain, and it says more than a monologue would.
That's the goal. If you need a paragraph to say it, you've missed the mark.
Oh, I'll put you on the spot. Is there a character we haven't really met, but who matters a lot more down the line?
Probably Roland's mother. She does more to hold things together than anyone thinks. Keeps the boys in line, doesn't blink at trouble, listens harder than anyone knows, but she works behind the scenes like the best people do.
I hope we get more of her. Can we talk about the festival aftermath for a minute? Those scraps left behind, the feathers, the wax puddles, the cast-off masks. Feels like an echo of better times. Did you plant those details with intent?
Always. It's memory you can see out in the dirt. No one has energy to clean up right. The mess reminds everyone of what was, a festival, a song, some laughter. But it gets trampled by boots and rain. The ghosts of joy hang on, even when no one wants them.
The story spends a lot of time with food or the lack of it. Crusts, thin stew, salt bread, even the debate over whose goose tracks mean dinner. Why do you linger on food the way you do?
Food's what matters when you've got little. It's comfort, survival, something to fight over, something to share or withhold. Food is the currency of the village, but it's also the rhythm of the day. Every meal marks time. People talk about what hurts, but it's the empty pot that keeps them up.
You also thread in the animal chaos, and you never make it cute. The goat butts a child, the pigs escape, chickens pick at wounds. Do you sit down and plan out each animal moment, or do you let it bloom in as you go?
I keep a list of the animals at the edge of my notes, just to make sure the world never sits still. If the village feels empty of animals, it's not real. They don't care about your bruises, they care about finding a gap in the fence or a crust left out. Sometimes they're comedy, sometimes trouble, sometimes neither.
Quick aside, do you have a favorite character, or is it like picking a favorite finger after a hammer slips?
Vera's up there. She works hard, never lets herself off the hook, but Tavlen makes me laugh when I write her. She curses, she's sharp, she got old the hardest way possible. I enjoy every minute with her, even if she's only in the corner of the page.
I want to talk about the weather. You use rain the way some writers use a soundtrack. It's everywhere. In dialogue, background, chores, arguments, and always just one more thing to push against. Was that always the case in your drafts?
Weather's the oldest enemy. You can't kill it, can't talk it down or bribe it. You learn to live around it, curse it, push back against it every day. I wrote the rain in from the start. It sets the world, marks the mood, and wears people down when nothing else can. Rain turns carelessness into danger, fixes nothing, breaks plenty.
There's this rhythm in the prose that feels almost physical. Short sentences, direct actions, not much in the way of spectating from above. Is that something you revise for, or does it come out that way on the first run?
That's first run for the most part. I go back to cut anything that feels like I'm narrating from above. If you can't see, touch, or hear it while standing in the field, it gets cut.
We see a lot of the village as a body in your writing. People working in packs, patching fences, lighting fires, helping or griping, but nobody trusts everybody else. There's a sense they all blend and all stand apart at the same time. Is that deliberate?
Everybody in a small place matters, and nobody can be trusted with all your secrets. That's just true. You build walls even when you live close. Sometimes it saves you, sometimes it's just habit.
Let's do one last run of listener favorites. Tag the moments that jumped out to people. First up.
I know what's coming.
The scene where Vera's brother tries to rope the goat and ends up flat in the mud. That's every small town I've ever known. Comments?
That goat earns its place. You can't steal a scene, but the goat tries.
Another listener says, scene with the twins fighting over slingshot, then being yelled at by their mother. Reminds me of my cousins. Does family just breed fighting everywhere?
In fiction and life, if you're not fighting, you're probably sick.
Love the old women at the well trading gossip over hard cheese and ragged bread. Kind of your Greek chorus.
Exactly. No story goes past them without a note or a word to add.
And finally, a listener points out repair scenes. Nothing more true than two people squatting in mud, patching nails, not talking, just fixing what's broken. Do you get that same satisfaction writing those as you do reading them?
More, if anything. Work fixes the world better than words.
And that's it for our listener notes. Keep them coming. We read every single one. Before we ease off, any advice for writers trying to build this kind of lived-in, weather-beaten world?
Go outside. Get yourself tired, muddy, cold sore. Carry a fence rail. Curse at a chicken. Patch something that refuses to hold. Then write it plain without trying to sound clever. That's how you get there.
So next up on Stellar Shock, we're going to get out of the mud, maybe? Or are you going to put us right back in the thick of it, Art?
Unless someone's got magic for me, it's more mud and more trouble.
No magic, only bruises. That sounds about right. All right. Art, thanks again for coming and not showering us with hope or silver linings. That's the real gift.
Appreciate it, Jess. Glad to be in it with people who get it.
Listeners, keep working, keep patching, keep sending us the ways the world breaks and fixes itself. We'll be right back next week if we dry out. Good night, and watch out for goats.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to Shockwaves, the Stellar Shock Aftershow podcast. If you're enjoying the pod and wish to support us further, please consider joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/vertical. That's patreon.com/VERTICLE. This episode of Shockwaves is a production of Vertical Media LLC, all rights reserved. Produced and edited by our talented team, the fabulous theme music was created exclusively for Shockwaves and is used with permission.